It is that sweet time of year again, when fields, woods, and marshes of every kind and stripe beckon us to get off our duffs and make a beeline for the uplands. Come October, that's been my routine for more than 65 years. Rabbits and varying hare with beagles back in the day. Then a long stint on wood ducks and mallards with retrievers, and now grouse and woodcock with setters. In looking over my field journals, I realize that pursuit of one bird in particular in the past half-century has been a defining habit. I have hunted woodcock north of 800 times, and my dogs have had more than 4,000 contacts with individual birds, 2 or 3 times that many if repoints and reflushes had been counted. Gene Hill's comment in The Whispering Wings of Autumn, 1981, sums up my life too. I spend an irrational amount of time and thought messing around with woodcock, he said. Woodcock this and woodcock that. As part of the messing around, for the past several years I have indulged in an oddball pursuit that has become an intellectual side hustle, so to speak, of my lifelong upland fascination and an accompaniment to 50-plus years of hunting woodcock. My inner Nimrod met its match in my inner geek. In between dashes to the woods with my setters, I have been studying in a scholarly way the history of literary and artistic writing about American woodcock, from the first significant account in 1709 to the current day. An impressive span of 315 years. The result, Flight Birds, 90,000 words long, is an annotated record of mostly non-scientific titles written in the United States about our native woodcock, Scolopax minor. It treats 38 books written solely about woodcock, 18 books that treat both woodcock and ruffed grouse or other game birds together, and 410 books that include chapters or commentary about woodcock. The work in progress, which includes a 90-page historical introduction, is not a bare-bones, alphabetized list of titles, but is rather a curated reference. I read each item, ruminated about its contents, then wrote a commentary that described what I considered to be the essential aspects of each work. In the case of brief items, a sentence or two would suffice. In the case of longish historical pieces or of individual books, the annotation might run to several paragraphs. Here is a representative example. This is from Part B, one of 18 books that feature woodcock and grouse, or other species, as part of their content. Evans, George Bird. Grouse and Woodcock in the Blackwater, Canaan. Brewston Mills, West Virginia. Old Hemlock, 1997. 138 pages. 60 personal, journal-like entries, selected from 3 decades of devoted hunting with his Old Hemlock setters in the high uplands of northeastern West Virginia, in an area 50 miles south of his home in Brewston Mills, around the town of Davis in the Blackwater River drainage of the Canaan Valley, the crown jewel of that geographic area. Portrayed with color and texture, the countryside itself becomes a constant character in this book, especially the Gates, one of his prime woodcock coverts. Entries extend 3 decades from 30 November 1951 to 11 November 1981. Accounts of grouse predominate, but woodcock get their due as well throughout this anecdotal narrative. For example, in Days 43 to 47, 19th to 23rd October 1964, pages 86 to 93, with its account of splendid sport over a good brace of setters on woodcock. All in all, a nostalgic love letter to the birds, dogs, and landscape, much of it eventually gone, that Evans drew upon repeatedly for inspiration and sustenance, and in doing so made legendary in his own way. There is a longing and an ecstasy about this strange land, longing for what has been taken from us, the birds and the solitude. There is ecstasy in dreaming that someday it might come back. Page 137. You get the point. Reading and writing about 466 different woodcock-related titles until I was nearly blind, I came to sympathize with Charles Askin's comment in Game Bird Shooting, 1931, that I have read everything about the little red hide-and-go-seek, light of the woods, and I still don't know much. I know more than I would have otherwise, so the research has been useful and edifying, but the amount I don't know still haunts me, which is good reason to keep on keeping on. Make no mistake, the project is a labor of love. Most things that have only limited practicality in the real world usually are. I know that, but having been fascinated by the allure and mystery of woodcock, and having chased them most of my upland life, my curiosity about its published historical record got the better of me, so I bird-dogged the subject with fervor and zeal. I believe that the more we know about the contextual lore associated with a particular subject, the more we understand and appreciate its qualities. In reading deeply in the literature of American woodcock, I discovered an extremely rich and multi-layered love for the bird as a natural curiosity and as a sporting object that belies its small size and its here today, gone tomorrow migratory ways. Investigating the historical record, a kind of hunt all its own among the thickets of language, rather than alders, brought to light surprises and gems of information. It is humbling to realize that where woodcock hunting is concerned, there is very little original about our current situation. Woodcock have been a bird of choice for American sportsmen since the early 19th century. That is, from the moment the Doty brothers launched the intriguing and amply illustrated first volume of the Cabinet of Natural History and American Rural Sports, 1830. Thomas Doty, prime mover behind the Cabinet project, was an avid sportsman, artist, and a founder of the Hudson River School of Painting, who keyed into that rising wave of woodcock nimrods in rural sports. Doughty's appreciation of and enthusiasm for woodcock hunting is noted at the outset of a 2,400-word-long section called Woodcock Shooting, in which he claims, "There is perhaps no sport in this country which occupies the attention of the shooter as much as that of hunting woodcocks." The essence of that statement became a mantra echoed throughout the coming decades by a host of different upland writers. Doty developed a codified view of several aspects of woodcock hunting that might seem modern to us now, including information on habits, physiology, habitat, and hunting methods. Hunting with at least one other partner is advisable, especially in dense thickets. A dog is preferred, and where the Springer or cocking spaniel is not available, a setter is undoubtedly preferable to the pointer. A double gun, throwing very small shot, say number 9, is sufficiently large to bring down woodcock, there being no American bird of the same magnitude which possesses so frail a skin. Doty picks up an already established strain from earlier writers that woodcock can be easy birds to shoot, which makes them attractive to beginning hunters. But he also notes, no doubt from his own experience, that it requires much experience and judgment to embrace the proper moment to shoot before they make the twistings and turnings, in order to pass between the trees. For this most generally disconcerts everyone who is not an expert shot. Sound familiar? He also vociferously condemned shooting summer birds, a regrettable practice of slaughter during much of the 19th century when woodcock shooting opened in early July, and lobbies instead for autumn hunting, the only proper season to shoot them. From the outset, woodcock became poster birds for ethical sporting behavior. Besides advocating for an enlightened attitude toward woodcock hunting, the Cabinet was also a showcase as the first major American publication with colored sporting prints. Among the many pictorial pages in the first volume, there are 2 woodcock-related lithographs, and as far as I can determine, Plate 9, Doughty's Woodcock Shooting, which accompanied his woodcock shooting chapter, is the first such full-page book illustration representing setters specifically pointing Woodcock. With Doughty's lithograph, the die was cast. Woodcock and pointing dogs were wedded together. 9 years later, another die was cast when Henry William Herbert, a Cambridge University-educated British expat from a prominent family who wrote extensively about American field sports under the nom de plume Frank Forrester, called Woodcock Timber Doodles in the July 1839 edition of American Turf Register and Sporting Magazine in a piece titled A Week in the Woodlands, or Scenes on the Road, in the Field, and Round the Fire. Whether Herbert heard the term from someone among his boon sporting companions or created it on his own is unknown. In the early years of the growth of American woodcock literature, his is the first use of a nickname that has since become ubiquitous during the past 186 years. His Turf Register essay became part of his first Upland book, The Warwick Woodlands, or Things as They Were There 10 Years Ago, 1845, an important volume that drew on many recent thematic developments in the expanding woodcock literature of the previous 4 decades, then added some elements of its own, including 3 mentions of timber doodle. The book quickly commanded a strong following among the growing, well-heeled sporting community. By Herbert's reckoning, the book sold out its initial edition of 3,000 in 2 months, and bid fair to become the first upland hunting bestseller in the American woodcock canon. Other editions went on to sell equally well. He quickly became the most productive and influential sporting writer of the middle 19th century, something akin to a rock star of field arts, who was celebrated, honored, and lionized for his contributions to American sporting culture. A plaque erected by the Sportsmen of America and the Historical Society of the town of Warwick, New York, in 1920, still memorializes his popularity. The great American fly-fishing pioneer Theodore Gordon once admitted he could talk about woodcock until the end of time. I could go on and on presenting upland tidbits and woodcock oddities, but rather than being thought of as the village explainer, I'll close with one more interesting nugget. While the term sky dance, to describe the woodcock spring mating flight, is most often associated with influential naturalist Aldo Leopold and described so movingly in his A Sand County Almanac, 1949, the term actually was first coined by renowned ornithologist Frank Chapman in his Handbook of Birds of Eastern North America, 1895. In describing the woodcock as an owl among snipe, Chapman wrote, "The cloak of night always lends a certain mystery to the doings of nocturnal birds, and more often than not, their habits justify our unusual interest in them. How many evenings have I tempted the malaria germs of New Jersey lowlands to watch the woodcock perform his strange sky dance?" I am not suggesting Leopold plagiarized the term, but somehow in the alchemy of creativity, it made its borrowed reappearance. Leopold bought his copy of the 4th edition, 1897, of Chapman's book in April 1903, and apparently read it to good purpose. His copy is in the Aldo Leopold Archives at the University of Wisconsin Library in Madison. Perhaps it is time to set the record straight and recognize Chapman's importance in coining one of the most iconic woodcock-related phrases. As one of my old graduate school professors used to say about the pleasures of deep diving into history, he was a celebrated scholar of Herman Melville, everything old is new again.